Welcome back to another James Bond Review. This is James Bond Review episode 13, Octopussy from 1983. Roger Moore is in this Bond film and was 56 years old at the time of recording, so definitely starting to get on in age, and I have a lot to say about this film. This was the first Bond film I ever saw. Let's just get straight into the review, really. So this opening scene is, well, I'm not exactly sure where it's filmed, but we predict it's Cuba with the Fidel Castro kind of cameo going on there. And this Bond film is pretty kind of, in my opinion, this is by far my favourite Bond film of them all. It is my favourite Bond film. I'm going to make a review on Bond films in the future, but yeah, just spoiler alert, this is my favourite Bond film. The opening scene is another one of those nice kind of standalone adventures which don't really have any relevancy to the rest of the film, although that Cuban kind of communist setting does come up later in the film, because the main premises of this film is Kamal Khan, played by Louise Jordan, is the main kind of villain of the film, along with kind of his kind of what's his name, odd job like character, which is Govinda, played by Kabi Bedi, who's an Indian. Is that the USSR are going to invade Western Europe and NATO. It's a very good, interesting film idea and setting, but we'll come to that later. Like I said, this opening scene, it's very, very done well. It's a very good standalone adventure. The little mini airplane there is a good callback to, of course, 1967's You Only Live Twice, with Little Bessie as the aeroplane. Also in this film, Moneypenny is still played by the same character as all the other films, but M is played by a different character. M is now played by Robert Brown. However, Robert Brown has been in films before. He was in The Spy Who Loved Me. However, in my opinion, I think in the kind of James Bond timeline-like structure, he is still that character as a military naval official, but he is now M, if that makes sense. Similar to how in the end of Skyfall, M died and was replaced by another M. It's sort of similar to that, so it's not meant to be the same person, if that makes sense. It is meant to be a different actor, different person. So that's M, played by Robert Brown. And it's actually Moneypenny's the actor's second to last film as well. It's also Roger Moore's second to last film. So James Bond steps from the office. It's quite a serious conversation. Another one of the 00 agents, 009, was killed, and he had the egg. The egg he had was actually a fake model. It wasn't the real one. The real one is up for auction, and of course Kamal Khan wants it. I've forgotten the significance of the egg. I'm not quite sure how it is significant to the rest of the film, but I think it is a jewel that is relevant to, just generally, it's a very expensive item, of course. Bad people like expensive items in the James Bond world. So the next thing, we take to the Russian embassy of the KPG. That's a thing Putin used to be a part of, and we once again the same actor played by head of the KGB. And it is also interesting to note that throughout the James Bond series, Russia itself, the Soviet Union at the time, was never actually portrayed as the bad guys. It was just the individual Russians. The next scene is India. Now, India is the main setting of this film. I think India works really well as a setting. Bit of a mixed review, but personally I do really like India as a setting. And we get Vijay. Vijay is kind of like the Indian Felix Leiter, although he never comes up again, and he is playing himself. His name in real life is Vijay, so Vijay, played by Vijay, he's basically just playing himself, which now I quite like. And this is another pretty good iconic scene with the lucky weighted dice. The weighted dice is very interesting. Of course, James Bond works out straight away and asks to use his Kamal Khan's weighted dice, and of course he gets 666 easily in the game. It's just a very good, unique scene where, yes again, James Bond outsmarts the villain. This is the kind of, I guess, car chase or tuk-tuk chase in this scene, where the British have modified Vijay's tuk-tuk and it's like a massive speed boost, and it's really quite amazing. And throughout the whole scene, it does feel slightly off at times, but it does still work. It's sort of slightly comedic, but not too much of a comic relief. It is still good James Bond type humour. and still definitely thrilling. It does feel quite tense at times. You know, the film is only rated a PG, but still it does feel quite tense at times, and that's an interesting secret passageway. And it leads on to the Q scene. Q is still played by Desmond. That actor's not changed at all. It's a quite good Indian embassy which Q is in. Pretty cool weapons. It's definitely one of the more interesting kind of gadgets that they have, like that pen there which dissolves acid, and there's a microphone chip in it so you can listen to people. So in the next scene, we're now taken to the palace, or which actually meant to be a hotel James Bond is staying at, and he's talking to the same character with the same title, Octopussy, played by Maud Adams. And that's kind of the little kind of, I suppose, crew of Kamal Khan who do the circus and put on the show, which of course relevant to later on in the film. And in this scene, VJ is actually killed by Gubinder's henchman. Gubinder, like I said, he is Gubinder definitely is a very much kind of Indian, if you like, odd job. He doesn't really speak. He's very kind of sinister, scary tool. And that is actually a returning James Bond actor there. That actor there was in The Man with the Golden Gun, and she made a return back. I think it was a good return back. I think it works out quite well. And unlike Roger Moore, she doesn't seem to have aged at all. So in the next scene, the plan is set about setting off the bomb. Now again, I said, now we can get onto the main storyline. The bomb is going to be gone to an American airbase in British-controlled West Germany. Well, now it's just West Germany, the Federal Republic of West Germany, and Democratic Republic of West Germany is East Germany. So there's a bit of history trivia there. And the bomb is going to be let off in the US Embassy. So then all of Western Europe and NATO will have to withdraw their troops and stand down from Western Europe, meaning that the Russians in the Warsaw Pact can simply march on through. Again, very thrilling. I mean, especially now, of course, with, you know, the Russo-Ukrainian War and 1983 with the Cold War still definitely in full swing. And that theme of detente of period of cool tensions after the Cuban Missile Crisis, everyone was still in. Of course, by 1983, the Cuban Missile Crisis was 21 years ago. Same time the first Bond film was released, actually. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, so this definitely has relevancy to the world that was going on. It shows that the Russians were still, well, actually, again, careful, not necessarily Russians, but the Russian people or some Russian military advisors wanted to attack NATO, and it's quite, it's a very much more down-to-earth Bond film, that makes sense. It's very much more realistic, which is why I like it more. It's very much more history and Cold War based, and I think it's really interesting plot line. James Bond, of course, finds out about the plan, and that Russian there is simply a typical kind of high-ranking Russian, really. A bit like Putin. He just doesn't really care about how many people are going to get killed. He's just interested in restoring the Soviet Union and the Russian glory. Although, it has to be noted, this is more of a kind of just historical fact. The Soviet Union were not necessarily interested in land of NATO, like, say, France or Western Europe, which, of course, in the film they want to invade. They're more interested in just in keeping the Russian Empire there. So, I don't know. But, you know, they did still, of course, want to invade a bit of, you know, Germany, Austria, and parts of Western Europe. So, you know, it still has relevancy. And again, this is a very good car chase where the car tyres pop and the car is on the rail track. And then the Russian advisor gets killed by his own men. Not quite sure why. I mean, maybe they mercy killed him because he was going to humiliate himself. But as he reminds him, he is going to be dead today, but tomorrow he'll be made a hero because he knows, of course, the bomb will be set off. So it's a very good train scene. Again, I really do love the trains in this film that were used. They're very good. And the twin there is actually, sorry, he's about to die now, so you could have mentioned this earlier. That's Twin 1 and Twin 2, both played by David and Tony Mayer. They're not actually Russian, they're actually from Watford in Britain. I found that interesting. They're not actually Russian. So now, in I guess retaliation, the climax of the film is of course the fight at Kamal Khan's palace. All his little women working for him for the circus kind of all turned against him. Fair enough. I mean, they did try and send a nuclear warhead off in the circus. It's not exactly ideal, is it? I quite like how Q makes an appearance in the hot air balloon. I think that works quite nice. And Roger Moore sliding down the stairway with a typical Russian Cold War AK-47 is also an absolute classic scene that I love. And right until the very end of the film, there is continual climax. In this next scene, of course, James Bond is on top of a plane, and in real life, the stuntmen did have to do that. The stuntmen were on that plane, and they were legitimately having to deal with that altitude. Of course, there's some safety ropes, but still, that must have been absolutely terrifying. And the stuntmen aren't even that visible, which I think is quite good. And again, it's one of the rare scenes there where he got hit in the face, where blood is actually in the James Bond classical era. Classical era being 62 to 1989.